My lords, ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to Transport Fever 2. Now, as we can clearly see from the current screen, this is going to be the start, I think the start anyway, I'll leave that to you, of a new series. The reason being is the Canadian map, because of its experimentally large size, is now extremely laggy to the point of it being intolerable for myself, and therefore I would imagine it's also quite intolerable to watch due to the lag. However, that being said, I am prepared to continue the series if the general opinion is they would like to see it continued. I will do so, and I will just suffer the lag with gritted teeth. But I will leave that up to you. Instead, as I said, there's the option of this new series here. Now, this is going to be using a randomly generated map, and this is the one I think we're going to go for. Now, as you can see, we're going for a temperate map with just a little bit of hilliness, full water, full forest, and the seed is Bravo 3 Uniform Bravo Mike Foxtrot Echo Whiskey and then small Bravo. So if anybody would like to play along, they're more than welcome to. There's a seed there. The map size is large. It's 1:1 scale or aspect. High number of towns, low number of industries. Now if we jump on to the next page, we're going to start in 1910 this time round, and we're going to go on to hard difficulty. If we go on to the custom settings, climate is temperate, vehicles are European, town names are English, difficulty hard as we discussed, and environment temperate. So if you are hoping to follow along, you can do so with these settings here. Now for the mods, I've gone through and played about with them a little bit, and here what we have let's try that again. Here are the mods that we have enabled at the moment. Again, it's primarily focused on European or British mods. If you want to follow along, I dare say you wouldn't need all of the mods. Ones that would be definitely required we don't need that one. Would be, let's just have a look here. A lot of these are just assets and tunnels and the like, so not necessarily required. But what I would go for, and I'll scroll through quite slowly, so if anybody wants to get a list of them together, they can do. In fact, I'll probably put a list in myself and put it as a Steam Workshop mod file, so you can just download them from one central place. But yes, in terms of the required mods for this setup, so far there's nothing. Underground station and underpass and shader enhancement may be required, because we'll probably do some subway work, and all three of those, shader enhancement, underground station and underpass, are required to make that work. Other than that, as you can see, a lot of locomotive mods which you can do without. Here we go, there's some critical ones. Natural town growth, more industry levels, which doubles your industry levels, and you'll see that in evidence as we get started. Industry expanded as well. This adds some of the cargo types that are playable or available through the campaign mode, such as coffee and fish and whiskey and silver. So obviously that's going to change our industry, so you would want that one. All of these again are just train mods or signal mods, so not really required. I've also gone for auto signal and auto parallel tracks. They are just personal choice. Again, they're not something that would change the map generation in any way. And that's it. Now you can see we're now into the disabled mods here. So there's 75 in total, although I would say that about 95% of them are assets, whether that be train, bridges or tunnels. So yes, now we can click save there, and we can hit start, and we'll take a look at the map once the game throws it together. Okay, so here we are. We'll immediately pause the game, and we'll set our date speed to paused, because I like to do that in the early game once we get started, especially on hard mode. And we can take a moment to have a look at our map. Some of the towns created: we have Lewis of Rothbury, Bakewell, Nuneaton, Market Raisin, Portishead, Burton upon Trent, Marlborough, Highworth, Bracknell, Whitnash, Wareham, Swinton. And as you can see, there's extra industries. We have an oil sand mine, a marble mine. There's a few others as well. For example, the machinery factory. It's now changed because it now requires silver bars and steel to create the machinery rather than planks and steel. We have a coffee farm out here, a whiskey farm or an alcohol distillery up by Yoxall. And yes, a lot of the other industries are the same, as we can see here. Highworth steel mill, it has changed. Obviously the raw ingredients are the same, 2 iron and 2 coal, but now rather than just getting steel out, we also produce slag. Slag can be taken up to the construction materials plant here, as we can see, along with sand and marble and stone to create bricks. So it's added, if anything, an extra level of complexity to the game, because the industries aren't as straightforward as perhaps they are in the vanilla mode. So that's something to bear in mind. Other than that, everything is as we've come to expect of it. So let's go ahead and get started. And with it being hard mode, the first thing we're going to want to do is attempt to find a nice industry chain that is going to make us some decent money. Now, what I'm looking at the minute, we could turn some logs into planks, but from there on out there's nowhere nearby what calls for the planks. We have the machinery factory up here, but to utilise that fully we would need steel, which we're some way off being able to produce. Perhaps we could look at this oil chain here. We have an oil well, we have an oil refinery, and we have a chemical plant, and we also have a goods factory up here as well. So that is one possibility. Again, we wouldn't be able to provide the goods factory with the steel that they require, but we'd be able to make money off this delivery down to here, this delivery here, and then this delivery here. And because it forms almost a, well, it does form a circle of sorts, we can then have the trucks going in a loop around here, which means they're not going to have to run backwards for any great length of time, where they'd be running empty and not creating any profit. So I think this is where we shall start out. So the first thing we're going to want to do is link the oil well up at Yoxall down to the oil refinery down here at Bakewell. So let's make a start with that. We'd want a truck station for this. We only need one platform because we're only picking up one material, which is the crude oil. We'll go for 30 meters. I would like to go big straight away. And we'll put the refinery, oh sorry, I should say we'll put the truck station outside of the refinery just there. Now what I don't want to do is have our trucks go through the town of Yoxall unnecessarily. So we'll connect this road up to this existing road here, but rather than send them through the town, we'll create a bypass which goes down and connects in through here. That'll obviously cut a bit of journey time off, which is going to make things a little bit more efficient, and it's also not going to annoy the people of Yoxall having all these dirty, polluting vehicles driving through their lovely little forested town. And then from there we'll drive down to the refinery, and then we'll obviously move on. Again, we'll avoid going through the small town of Bakewell, rather we will bypass through here, up to there, and then up into there, and then straight in there without any interference through the towns of Blythe. There should be no need for us to go anywhere near that town at the moment, so that's all good. So the first thing we want to do is connect this street up to this existing road as we discussed just a moment ago. So let's get that done now. And we shall have this run nice and simple. No need for anything too extravagant at this point. And then from here, this is where we'll construct our bypass road. In fact, we'll come off just a little bit further away and then bring you in just like so. From there, the trucks will take this road, and then we'll have a branch point here once again, heading down towards our soon-to-be constructed truck station here at the oil refinery. And we'll have this round about here. Again, for the time being, one platform is going to be enough because they will drop off and then pick up the refined oil from the same platform. So let's put a second exit point there. Continue our street construction. So here's our way out for our trucks. And then we want to head up this road here. And about this point, just so we don't, as I said, interfere with our towns nearby, we'll have a bypass road that skirts around Bakewell, rejoins the main road here, heads up. And here is where we'll put our station for the chemical factory. Connect that in there. Put the second exit point on the opposite side. And then we want to take our road and we can connect here and have a four-way junction at this point there. And this can be a straight sweeping connection like that. Here we're going to need yet another truck stop, and we'll have that just placed inside this little wooded area just opposite the street there. Once all these are connected, we are going to have to verify that they are within the reach. As we can see, this one is inside the station's reach, so that's all good. Street access point on the opposite side once more, and then finally we're coming out and we're going over to our first truck station up by the oil well. So we'll head up to about there. Here we're going to need the street access point again. And as we can see, we have a connection. This is actually direct connection, as you can see here. So no concerns with that. Connect that in. And there's our 4 stations in place, ready to go. That's connected to the refinery. That's connected there. That's connected there. And that is connected there. So that's all set up and ready to go. So now we can actually create the first line of this map. And we are going from Yoxall East to Bakewell West, up to Bakewell East, and finally to Blythe West. Before we rename anything, let's go ahead and set everything correctly here. At Yoxall East, which is the oil well, we want a full load with a maximum stop time of just 30 seconds, so there's not any unnecessary hanging around. And here we're going to be loading the crude oil. If I can just find the icon, there it is. We're not unloading anything here. At our next station, Bakewell West, we do not want to set this to fully loaded because it is a 2-to-1 ratio, as we can see. So our first truck will be waiting around far too long to try and get a full load, which is not going to be coming because we haven't supplied it enough of the raw input materials. So let's continue here. As I said, not fully loaded, but we'll go for a maximum stop time once again of 30 seconds. Here we are loading, so we're going to unload the refined oil, the crude oil, and then we're going to load the refined oil. Over at Bakewell East, this is a 1-to-1, so we could ask it to stop for a full load, although it won't produce a full load because the truck at best will only have a half load coming through. So once again, we'll leave that as is, but we will set this, and we are unloading the refined oil and loading plastics. Time 30 seconds. And finally, up at Blythe West, we are not loading anything, but we are unloading the plastic. There we go. Maximum stop time Because we're not loading anything here, we can actually just go for something like maybe 10 seconds, and that should be enough to unload the load of plastics that the trucks have brought with them. So let's name up this first line, and this will be plastics production. I'll not put the town names in at this point, but I will change the colour. Given that it's plastics that we're finishing up on, we'll go for a plastic sort of colour. I think perhaps... no, not that one. We'll go for that pinky sort of colour. That will do. So that's all set up ready for us. All we need to do now is get not a tram depot, a road depot. And we'll put the road depot near the starting point of the chain, so the trucks don't have to drive unnecessarily far to start their journey and their orders. I got that the wrong way round. I'll probably change that, but for now let's just get the vehicles purchased. Cargo vehicles. So we still have some horse and cart, although chances are we're not going to use them. While the capacity is the same, the top speed of the DMG Cannstatt is a lot higher, as we can see, as is the power. So we'll go for the DMG Cannstatt. And to start with, we will go for... I'm going to say we'll go big. I tend to go big on hard mode with our trucks. They are quite cheap. 50, that'll cost us just under 2 million, so that'll leave us about 6.5 million to play with, which is more than enough. So let's get that. Let's then colour them this roughly the same colour as the line they're operating on. Set them on their way, and let's go to 4 times acceleration. We'll keep the date paused just while everything beds in. As we can see, the oil has already started to be churned out by the oil well, ready for collection. I am going to change this straight away. I did allude to the fact I may change it. I have decided I'm going to change it. So we'll do that, and then we'll swap the terminal over to terminal number 1. That way they're not having to loop around on each other, as we can see them doing here and now. Let's just check if we're on the correct side everywhere else. At Bakewell West, that is correct. Over in Bakewell East, we are also all good. Similarly in Blythe West. So it was only this station what was causing the loopy-loop, which has now gone away. So while they're bedding in, I'll quickly rename all of these, just so we know exactly what they are and what they are servicing. So this is the Yoxall Oil Well. This is the Bakewell Oil Refinery. This is the Bakewell Chemical Plant. And last of all, this is Blythe Goods Factory. There we go. So as we can see, our trucks are all heading out with a nice full load, 5 out of 5 across the board. It's going to take a while for the spacing to properly kick in. As you can see, you may have picked it up on the mod screen. This now says cash flow. Now what this doesn't account for, or the difference between this and the vanilla information display down here, is this will not factor in your investments. So whether that be infrastructure or vehicles, this is not reflected here. So this is literally your income versus your maintenance or your outgoings and your loan interest. If we open the account screen, we can see the investments are still being paid for. We spent 3 million, but rather than that being reflected down here, this is now just comparing our road income, or not as the case may be, to our loan interest. So obviously if we were to add those together, we would come up with this figure here. I think that's a far better way to display the information, if I'm perfectly honest. I see we're not picking up any... Oh, you've got some. So our first vehicle doesn't have any refined oil on board. Probably the wait time was a little bit too short, but never mind. All the others should be driving off with at least 2 or 3 units. So yes, as I said, this is to me a better way to display the information, because when you purchase a train or set up a new line, any sort of investment, it won't reflect it down here, although you are still paying for it, obviously. So it's not a cheat or anything like that. It doesn't make it any easier, nor does it make it any more difficult, if I'm honest. It just gives you a better cost or incoming versus outgoing statement. So what we'll do now, we'll leave it as it stands, give time for these trucks to bed in. I think my goal in this series, I'd like to get to say, well, we hit, I think in the end it was about 4 or 5 billion on the Canadian map. Obviously that was on medium difficulty. So I'll set myself a goal of, we'll halve that and we'll say £2 billion in the bank account. Obviously we don't want any loans at all. So we'll pay off our loans as soon as possible. We could pay off a good chunk of our loan now if we wanted to, but then we'd be sat around for ages waiting for the money to accumulate to set up a new line. So we'll not do that just yet. But once we really get this figure flowing, then we will pay our loan off as soon as we possibly can. I'm just having a quick scour around the map while that line beds in to see if there's any simple production chains we can set up straight away. Nothing is jumping out at me, and when I say production chains I do mean including deliveries into a city. As I said, nothing is jumping out at me. Obviously we've got a construction materials plant here, and Bracknell does require the construction materials for growth. However, we need to get slag, we need to get sand, marble and stone before we can start producing the bricks. We could supply the fish into this meat processing plant here. If there's a farm nearby, where's the nearest one? Perhaps that one. We could supply the cattle farm here, which we could also supply into there. That meat could then be shipped over to our food processing plant. So that'd be 33% of the required inputs there. We would also need coffee and alcohol. We have coffee here, but the distance is probably too prohibitive in the early game to make that a viable option. There is a coffee farm here, but I'm not sure if we have a coffee manufacturer down here at all. I cannot see one. In fact, the best way to check, that's the wrong industry. Note, the only one on the map is the one up here by Swinton. And I do believe the only alcohol distillery is this one here at Yoxall, and we can test that. Indeed it is. It's this one up here. Now that to me would be a perfect shipping opportunity. And in fact, we could also utilize the same ship to bring the wheat all the way back up to drop off to be turned into alcohol. So that's a strong consideration. Could we ship the... In fact, we could also ship in the coffee. So we'd have a road connection there, supplying from the coffee farm to the coffee refinery. A ship that drops off the coffee to here. This could be shipped over via the water as well, the meat over to there. And then we would have bread, and that wouldn't take too long to set up. It's just a question of whether the shipping routes would be commercially viable without any other steady income aside from this truck line here in the early game. After all, it is hard mode. So that's something to consider for sure. I think in the meantime, it might not be a bad idea to supply this fish over to here to get that started. Likewise, the coffee down to here. The problem we have with that is the trucks will be running empty to return to the coffee farm or to the fishery, which is inefficient and a loss of income, and that does hurt you in the early game on hard mode. But you never know until you try. So that could be our next move. As we can see here now, our trucks are starting to space themselves out somewhat better. We still have this large gap here between our leading truck and our trailing truck. That to me says we could do with an extra. I'm going to say, how many could we fit in there looking at the spacing, or the average spacing here? I bet we could get another 20. So what I think I'll do is, when this final truck draws level with our road depot, is we'll purchase another 20 DMG Cannstatt's and stick them on the line, and then they should fill in this gap quite nicely. And that will give us an almost steady continuous income stream, because you're never too far away from a truck making some sort of delivery. As we can see, we're now profitable, which is fantastic. This line makes us, or on a rolling 12-month basis, has made us just about £300,000. That obviously does include any costs for the maintenance on these trucks, which we've got set to normal, so we're not incurring any additional costs. Given that they don't venture anywhere near a town, there's no need to ever set these to anything other than basic normal maintenance. Although if Blythe and Yoxall were to expand, Yoxall especially, and Bakewell for that matter, they wouldn't have to expand much to encroach on the road here, and then we would start suffering emission penalties in those towns. So we'll keep an eye on that, and if that does happen, then we may want to consider bumping up the maintenance on our road vehicles here. One thing I am looking for very quickly is there any viable rail line? Oh, well, that's interesting. This construction material plant here does not require the additional goods of slag, sand and marble. Rather, it only requires the stone as per the vanilla. Well, that is quite interesting. Given that West Ham does have a need for bricks for growth, as does Portishead, I'm quite tempted to set up our first train line from the quarry here at Lewes over to the West Ham brickworks, and then shipping the bricks onwards either into the town of West Ham itself or over to Portishead. Given the fairly flat terrain here, our early locomotives wouldn't struggle too much with the gradient changes, because there aren't that many gradient changes for them to be concerned with. So I think we'll do that. We will set this up. I think for now we'll just have it running the stone over to the brickworks. We can add extra lines in at a later point. So let's go ahead. Let's get a cargo station. We only want one track here for now. We'll keep it at the basic 160 metre track length, or platform length. Now, is this a road connection that's critical? No. This isn't an intercity road connection, so we can safely demolish it, just so it makes our track laying efforts that little bit easier. And we'll give it a direct connection straight onto the quarry here at Lewes, and we'll have our other station for the brickworks perhaps in this area here. In fact, we can game it a little bit by getting rid of that road, and then we could pop it just on the corner here, sort of like that, and that's going to leave us in a good position for the tracks to head out towards Portishead and West Ham, while still being in a decent alignment for a station from Lewes. So let's lay the tracks down now. We'll go for the catenary straight away. Why the heck not? Now we want to keep this as flat as possible. Luckily the terrain isn't too bad. I must say it's a breath of fresh air dealing with nice level terrain after the cramped conditions we had to contend with in the Canada map. And as I said, that Canada map isn't necessarily dead and buried. I will sway myself to public opinion on that one. So if people would like to see it continued, I would be happy to do so. Obviously, you have to bear in mind the lag on that map is now ridiculous. So how do we look there? That looks pretty good. Decent speeds all the way across. We'll have it single tracked for now, with perhaps a passing loop at the rough halfway point, which is just on the edge of this radius here. Now, given that we are in the UK, I will be doing left-hand drive trains this time around. It's what I'm used to, and it's what my mind sees when I'm planning it out, so I don't have to do double takes on myself to make sure I'm getting it correct. Okay, so we can't have the junction on the level crossing, which makes sense. So instead we'll put it over here. And again, we'll try and get as much speed here as possible. 69 miles per hour. That's pretty good speed. None of our trains are anywhere close to hitting 69 miles per hour, so that's good there. Yes, we'll have auto... Oh, this one replaces the signals as well. That'll be handy later on when we unlock the modern light electric signals. So if let's see, this is the first time I've used this, so you're going to have to bear with me. And I'm probably going to have to experiment here to see it works as I think it should. Okay, that's not actually done. That's not put any other signals in. Let's try it again without that parallel track put in. Auto signal, yes. Signal spacing, let's go for 400 meters. And again, it's still not put any other signals in, so I'll have to study that and see how it actually does work. But for now, we'll do it manually, so we are left-hand drive. There we go. So that's going to be enough for now. And we'll have our depot on the other side of this quarry. So we'll have that run out just a fraction, doesn't have to go too far. In fact, it's probably too far, there we go. Buildings, and then a train depot. Let's spin you around, there you go. Now we can set up this line, and we are going from Lewis Quarry over to Lewis or West Ham Construction Materials. We want 60 seconds here, fully loaded with the stone. Not unloading anything, we are loading the stone there. Here we're not loading anything yet, but we are going to unload the stone. And we'll have this set to grey to match the stone colour. And this is our stone freight, Lewis to West Ham. We'll quickly rename the stations. So that's Lewis Quarry. And this is West Ham I'll call it Brickworks. So now we can purchase the train. Locomotives, what do we have? So our most advanced train is the A35, that was 62 miles per hour. We also have the PLM 220, the BR89 Plus T3, and the BR53 Plus G3. That's quite a jump in maintenance, an extra £400,000 per year. However, you also have a big jump in top speed. However, I don't think our wagons can hit 62 miles per hour. So I think for a cost-saving exercise, we might go for the PLM for this one. So we'll add just one locomotive. Passenger, no, cargo wagons. So what are our top speeds? 50 miles per hour. So if we think about it, we're sacrificing 14 miles per hour there. 13 miles per hour, I should say. Obviously, 50 minus 37 is 14. Here, we're sacrificing 12 miles per hour. So that, to me, says we might be better with the A35. So let's do that. Gondola, because we're carrying the stone. And we shall go for, let's keep an eye on this here. Can't afford that, so it's going to have to be that. Well, that's fine. Only 47 seconds to get up to top speed. 40 capacity, 5.5 million. We can only buy one of them, so let's do it. We'll colour it the same colour as the line it's running on and get it on its way. And we'll see, hopefully, this should be a nice little earner for us. And I think, ladies and gentlemen, this is where we're going to leave our first episode of this new series. Hope you're excited for a new series. And I forgot to put the trucks in there, never mind. And as I did say, this doesn't necessarily spell the end for the Canada series. I'm open to hear your suggestions, comments and feedback on that, and we'll take it from there. But for now, let's hop on board our newly minted train number 1. Again, as with Canada, if you'd like to suggest names for any of our locomotives, our lines, anything at all, please let me know in the comments and I shall do my best to get those incorporated for you. But for now, all that remains for me to say is, as always, take very good care of yourselves. It's ta-ta for now.